they would gain like absolutely nothing. Even if they decide to sue us, it's like we have like $50. Like, do you want it?
Yo, this is Don from Swing Low, and you're watching the Scoped Exposure podcast with them Chili Boys.
Okay, sick. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. We go from Calgary all the way to Delaware, of all places, and talk with Tyler from a number of different bands. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, my guy.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm like really stoked to do this.
Oh, well, I'm very stoked to have you, obviously. Tyler, like I said, plays in a number of bands. Main projects that we can kind of hit on right now would be Wrist Meets Razor, Vicious Embrace, Foreign Hands. And then I never know how to pronounce the name of the other band that you play in. So please correct me on that.
It's pronounced simulacra.
Simulacra. Yeah, it's such a it's one of
Yeah,
those things where it's like I can read it, but sometimes my mouth and brain just don't work at the same time for that band name specifically.
yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, plethora of great bands on your repertoire. So there's a lot of things that we can hit on. Tyler actually is a real one and used our got some bevs. So maybe that's a nice way that we can transition into that point of the show. Tell the people at home what we're both going to be checking on the podcast today. This is very exciting. This is a Scoped Exposure podcast first, ultimately.
So I got the dirty chai from Say When. I haven't heard of this brand before they sponsored you. But I'm very excited to try this because chai usually isn't like vegan, and I don't eat like honey or anything. So I'm very, very stoked to try this out.
Yeah, I was very excited when Tyler had shot me an Instagram message with it, and yeah, like I feel like, to my knowledge, Say When does have a pretty good American base of customers, but again, it's like, you never know who someone who's looking for, especially something that's vegan specifically, and
Yeah.
the things just line up. I'm doing the same thing, dirty chai, some oat milk. Today has been, today's Friday, but I've needed like this quote unquote second coffee like much earlier in the day, but I knew we were kind of saving it for this one. So,
Yeah.
so is this your first time having it, or have you had it a couple times already?
I've had like dirty chais before, but not from Say When.
Okay, so we're gonna get initial reactions in this. So this is very, very cool. Are you
Yeah.
what
So
are
I
you
got
doing with like oat milk, or what's your preference there?
yeah. I'm going with coffee mate brown sugar oat milk creamer.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully that's gonna blend pretty well. So here
Well,
goes.
cheers to you, my guy. I'm very excited to be doing this podcast. And Tyler approves.
That's good. That's really good.
Very sick.
That's so sick.
Yeah, honestly, if people are DMing me being like, "How do I get on the podcast?" Like, supporting our Bev sponsors is a great way to get my attention. So, yeah, justsaywen.ca, code scoped for your first order. And if Tyler from all the bands that I mentioned before is fucking with it, you probably will as well. Yeah, it was when I originally reached out to you. Would there be another Bev that you would be checking on this podcast, or are you big on the chai, so to speak?
um, I'm big on the chai. Uh, let's see, because you only have the that one beer company, right?
Yeah,
Or-
so there's a brewery here in Calgary called New Level, which we're sponsored by, but they also do craft sodas. So it's like a non-alcoholic option for all the straight edge homies.
Mhm.
So it's strange because they can't ship internationally because of like alcohol restrictions, but they can ship the sodas internationally. So
Right.
yeah, maybe that's the next thing
Huh.
on your grocery list.
That is interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I saw the chai. I was like, I need that. I really need that because I'm a huge like coffee head.
Right, of course.
So I'm down to like try like any like new like coffee or like chai drinks.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did like a Ask Me Anything on Instagram just a few days ago, and someone was like top 5 favorite bevs, and like say when, even if they didn't sponsor the podcast, I would be drinking it like just as much, honestly, just because it is like
Yeah.
so good. I was
Mhm.
actually contemplating, I made a cold brew just the other day, and I was thinking about putting some in here. But honestly, like,
Ooh.
I was running late to our podcast, so I was like, I can't do
Mhm.
the cold brews. So I was just like, I'm kind of just throwing things in like a Disney like witch, just like all these potions in one. But the fact that I can make this bev in like,
Special brew.
yeah, exactly, the special brew. Well, Tyler. First off, thank you for picking up some bevs through us. I think that is very sick. But like I said
Yeah,
before,
absolutely.
playing in a plethora of bands. I think the first time that we actually crossed paths, maybe we didn't have like a face to face conversation, was when Wrist was up for Wild Rose 2019, and that was kind of around the time that I guess Wrist was turning in from a 3-piece into a 4-piece. So let's definitely hit on that. But before we get into the band specifically, I always like to ask my guests how they got into heavy music, how they got into hardcore. So take us back in time and tell us like the Tyler origin story of some of those things, and that will kind of set the stage for the rest of the episode.
All right. So, born, raised in Delaware, uh, second smallest state in the country. Um, I feel like not a lot of people care or know about Delaware. It's kind of like a afterthought in the back of their heads. So it's just like, uh, yeah. So trying to think of like the first time like I like not heard music, but like understood like, oh, like this is like music.
Sure.
Like the earliest memory that I can think of is my mom had like this mixtape, like an actual like cassette tape, and one of the songs was Hungry Like the Wolf by Duran Duran. And for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason that just like that kind of like stuck with me when I was like super, super, super little.
Okay.
Like when I listen to it now, it kind of doesn't like really do anything for me.
Sure.
But I just remember just like that kind of being like, oh, like this is like music. Trying to think. Yeah, from there I was just like, okay, yeah. And then it wasn't until like I started getting to like video games, like having like like N64, PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
The second time I kind of had like that moment was the uh Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3.
Yes. Yeah. That was one of the most intro
It's kind of
cases
funny.
for me as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that like I mean, I know like skateboard ties in with like hardcore and metal and whatnot, but
Sure.
it's like it's always funny like hearing like people like our age being like, yeah, like the Pro Skater games were like got me into like this like genre of music.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like I remember when Thomas and John from Vatican came on the podcast, and we were just talking about some of the most there is a handful of influential like video games when it comes to heavy music. Tony Hawk being a huge like a reoccurring one that I've heard on the podcast multiple times. But even games like Guitar Hero, where you
Mhm.
would get your dad rock kind of like legendary bands, but then you would hear like Before I Forget by Slipknot or like something like that, and you're like, whoa, like what are these? But yeah, like I remember Tony Hawk for me specifically was huge. Pro Skater 3 was kind of my intro into that world, and then it was also shout out to NHL Hits 2003 on the GameCube. That had some like really banging tracks on that as well. But yeah, so heard some music that was like, okay, there's like a little bit of an edge to this, and then through video games like started to see the sharper edges of that as well. As far as like growing up in Delaware, like, tell me about like, like I think now that hardcore through the internet is kind of at scale and people can know about bands from all over the world now. There's a number of Delaware bands that come to
Mhm.
mind, but when you were getting into it, like how were you finding out about like shit in your local like circle or city?
Oh, geez. Let's see. So I'm trying to like think. How I found out. So I guess it wasn't really until a little bit after I got into like heavy music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this kind of ties into like the first show I went to,
Okay.
and so that story is um my like I think like my older sister had a friend in like our neighborhood who was going to a show like in Delaware, and it was a band that I really liked at the time, and they were called Scary Kids Scaring Kids.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
I didn't yeah, so that's definitely like a throwback.
Most
I
definitely.
was like, oh, like I know them. Like I was in the eighth grade. I was like, I like listening to these guys like all the time. Like they were playing in Delaware. That's like so like unheard of. And then I like I thought they were just like the only bands playing because I didn't know how like shows worked.
Yeah.
So I got there. I got to the venue that we had at the time called the Harmony Grange. I got there on time to see them, and it was only like 20, 30 some minutes. And I
Sure.
was like, that was awesome. And then I was like, do they always have shows here? And I was like, and then after that, uh, there was like word going around the middle school I was at. There was like another band playing like a little less than a month later, and they were called the Devil Wears Prada. And I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
oh, I know them.
Right.
So I went to that show, and that I was like, okay, I'm definitely like in this for sure.
Mm.
And then that's when I kind of discovered like, oh, there's like local bands around my scene or just like surrounding states that would like come into Delaware and just like either like open up a show or like play on the weekends to just have like a local band like run around.
Yeah. No, that that's very interesting to hear such throwbacks. Like, the Devil Wears Prada is one of those bands that everyone knows, but I'm sure that you got to see them kind of in their prime of a lot of those things. Like if even if shows were happening right now and the Devil Wears Prada was coming through, like it's one of those bands that I'm like, you have so much new material that I don't know how much of the songs that I personally would want to see live that you would actually play. But like scary kids scaring
Yeah.
kids, like you said. I think I actually had found out about that band through watching Smosh growing up, because they did like a collab with
Oh,
them
really?
back in the day. Yeah, it was like I can't even remember, because this is
Huh.
back when it was like Anthony and Ian were just like making like videos on their webcam, and then they would have like
Mhm.
some, I can't even remember, like they did some song together, and I'm like, what is this like weird like screaming and like super low growling? But you know, I was already kind of, I think that was maybe a seed that was like kind of like indirectly planted when I was already like, you know, listening to All That Remains and like all those kind of metally kind of bands, to get a little bit of exposure into that world.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that's too funny. Did you watch Smosh at all?
Wasn't super into them. I
That's
was
fair.
kind of like, because that was when like YouTube was like kind of like a thing.
Right.
I wasn't like a huge like YouTube head, so I wasn't like I I didn't know what was going on. Like I just knew like funny videos were like on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube's kind of gone through a weird place where it's like, um, I remember like back in the day, it was like, oh, here's a video of a cat on a piano, and like people share that around or whatever. And now it's like, who's the latest YouTube drama that's getting canceled right now, and all the reaction and response videos to that, and it's
Mhm.
just, you know, it's kind of a messy place at this point. But uh, all right, so
Yeah.
I was like, where did we land off from Smosh? And it was scary kids getting scaring kids. That's hard to say at times. And then Devil Wears Prada came shortly after that. Um, and then I think it is always those things where it is the bigger shows, that like brings in way more people, and then that's where there's a little bit of a trickle down into the local scene, because it was kind of the same thing for me where I was going to these bigger shows and then eventually found out, oh, like there are similar bands that sound like this, but they're playing like every weekend or every other weekend, and I don't have to wait for the big bills to come through.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So you know, started to, you know, peel back, you know, turn the page ultimately of like, okay, I want to be involved in this. What was actually the first, not the very first band, but as far as the bands that we listed at the beginning of the episode, I'm not sure which one is actually the oldest or has the most tenure behind it. And which one either you started or you got asked to join. Tell me about some of those things.
Oh, okay. So the first band that I ever like started writing stuff with and trying to get like people to like band together. That started in 2009. It's nothing worth mentioning. We put like one really shitty song out on like MySpace,
Okay.
and I think we had kind of like disbanded after that, and then um I think like not too long afterwards we like some of the guys were like, hey, we're starting like new band, um and that kind of like that kind of like glued us into like a more like prominent band in our scene. um Again, nothing like worth mentioning. It was like stupid, like, you know, generic
Yeah.
post hardcore, like rise core, whatever. um that was like early 2000, like 11/12.
Hmm.
And then that was when I kind of falling off of that, like that wave of like metalcore. It just, something about it wasn't really like doing it for me anymore. Like I liked the the mid, like later like 2000s like charm that that genre had, that I wasn't really like feeling for like the early tens or whatever. So I was just like,
Sure.
I don't want to like really do this anymore. um but then we all kind of like agreed about that, and we everything, we kept the name, but we scrapped everything and started writing, like, you know, that was like around the time when like melodic pump, like making its jump. And we were doing that for a while. We did like a tour, or we did like a weekender and like one like week long tour, and then we there's actually kind of a funny story to it. So we were called Triumph at the time. I think
Okay.
you'll get a kick out of this.
Okay.
So we were called Triumph at the time, but we had no idea that there was a Canadian hair metal band called Triumph. And we actually got a cease and desist from them about the band name.
Dang. I don't know what it is about hardcore bands always getting the short end of the stick as far as getting cease and desist. Like I remember, I think Bugging Out had to kind of do the whole thing as far as shortening it just to Buggin' based off of that. And it's always off of bands that are not as good as like the other bands. So there's some intimidation that maybe was at play, or were they just like, no, this is our name?
Yeah, it is weird because like at the time we were just like, we had like 1,200 likes on Facebook, and here's like this multi-platinum like band like, hey, if you don't take all your stuff down, we're going to sue you.
Yeah, I don't understand this. Like, you guys are
It's
big
like,
enough
how do
as
you
it
find
is.
us?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm sure one of the members is just in their basement at like 1 a.m. just like searching their band name, like so self-absorbed, and just like, who else is on here that I can tear down? Jeez.
It's just like some like 6-year-old stupid old head like, I remember the good old days.
Yeah.
I won't let them take this from me, while they have like the plaques of their albums like stacked up on the wall.
Yeah, they're like using like some like award that they won as like a paperweight of like, no one can be Triumph but us.
Exactly.
Like, jeez. No, I just don't understand it. Like, I feel like it's, especially when it's totally different genres of music and in different countries, like for that matter, like, you know, like,
yeah, like why does it matter? Like we're from United States. Like you're literally in another country. What are you doing here?
And like, we will never play a show together where like there is no way that there will be like us crossing paths. So I don't know why you're just like going after me.
Exactly.
Yeah, like if there was if there was another band called Endgame in like Southeast Asia, I'd be like, that's cool. Like, even if they were a punk band, it's like, maybe we'll play a show together, and that would be like kind of confusing. Like, hey, we're Endgame. Hey, we're also Endgame. Like 40 minutes later, or whatever it is.
Yeah, they would gain like absolutely nothing, even if they decide to sue us. It's like, we have like $50. Like, do you want it?
Yeah, it's like
here's like,
hey, we're gonna sue you. It's like, I have $50.
Yeah, it's like, here's all of our merch money, a collective of like $100. Just take it.
Yeah, it's too bad. Like, so did you guys change your name from that band, or like completely, like maybe you just
We did
a new band?
We changed it to Foreign Hands.
Oh, okay. So Foreign Hands used to be Triumph. I understand. It's like, I was just imagining like, it should be like, okay, we'll change the name, but then like if you did like a Foreign Hands shirt like as a rip off of maybe one of their shirts that they have online, that it's like, just to be like, hey, the name's different, but like, fuck you.
That would be pretty funny.
Well,
But yeah, we changed to Foreign Hands.
Yeah. So so that switch happened, and Foreign Hands. So that kind of answers my question as far as what's been the longest standing band that you've been a part of. So,
yeah.
as far as like when that band, I think you guys, Foreign Hands, I was getting mixed up when I was doing a little bit of research for this podcast, because like because of the amount of bands that you've played in, it was like this band has played LDB 2019. This one has done LDB 2020. So Four in Hands did 2020, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. So, I think, we had just passed the point as far as the time of recording this where a lot of people had been like reflecting on like everyone's like last show. Sorry, I had a little pop up on my computer. Was that your guys' last show before things kind of shut down in the world, or did you guys play some stuff just before or after that?
Yeah, I think that was that was definitely the last show that we played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thinking about that now, like what goes through your mind like while you were playing that, and obviously no one had foreseen everything coming down. But like I remember when Brian came on the podcast and we talked about how Knocked Loose played kind of LDB Fest kind of spontaneously. And he was like, I'm kind of glad that we got to do that because of everything else imploding after that point. So
Mhm.
where does your mind go when it comes to Four in Hands and that set in particular?
Dude, I miss it so much. That was like, if there was any like kind of show that I would play, like if I only had the knowledge of like, oh, everything's gonna get shut down, like after that, that that was like the perfect case scenario for it.
Yes. Yeah, I think like sometimes I always try to think about this, like just playing as hard as I can for that specific show, whether there's 10 people or 100 people in the room. And I hope that is kind of cemented a lot more for people, is like put your all into this show, because like there could be another like crazy virus that gets created or spawned or whatever it is, and the world could go into
Mhm.
this state again. So it's
Yeah.
like there's been a common theme of the podcast of like just not taking hardcore in general for granted, because a lot of people that I know in my local circles would skip the odd local show, or they would just go to the regional fest or whatever it is. So
Mhm.
my hope is for anyone listening or watching this is that like just don't take this shit for granted when it comes back. Like invest, go to every show you can, like so support the bands. Like don't be like, I'm not gonna mosh
Mhm.
tonight, and then it's like, oh, I haven't moshed in 2 years now. So yeah, no, I think all that's
Yeah.
really important for
we
sure.
we all definitely took that for granted.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think like I think everyone can be maybe a little hard on themselves of like, even for myself, like I feel like I went to a lot of different shows, but there's definitely things where, just looking back and not having that access, it's like, yeah, I kind of wish I went to that festival, even if I wasn't filming it myself, or like I really regret not, driving out to this show and catching this. But, that's, those missed opportunities hopefully just influence, when shows and all that shit comes back to like, not to make the same mistakes, I guess.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Um, definitely, like if this has taught us anything, it's to definitely not take this and what we have for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're gonna jump around to some of the other bands and shit that you're a part of. So, I'm cheating right now because I wanted to see. So, um, so the other band that I wanted to talk to you about, because Four in Hands you're doing vocals in, but you're also doing vocals in another band called Vicious Embrace. Um, the last thing
Yeah.
that you guys put out was in 2017. Like it was kind of like a winter demo or winter demonstration, which I thought I'm starting to really like when bands just instead of saying demo, it's like demonstration. Because I think just saying the whole thing is kind of cool. But yeah, like I was kind of listening to both both bands, and that's always an interesting thing for me as someone looking at someone who does vocals in a multiple bands, like seeing how like in Foreign Hands, like you have a certain style, but it's not like copy and paste for Vicious Embrace. So was
Yeah.
that like, talk to me about how, when that project came to be and you were like, like how am I going to shake this up and do this a little bit differently?
Right. So I guess this kind of ties into like how I started doing vocals in general.
Okay.
So because before I did anything like band related, I started with guitar.
Mm-hmm.
My main my primary focus was to like play guitar in a band. That was like what I had in mind for how many years I do music. But I remember like one day I was like, oh, like doing vocals would kind of be cool. It'd be kind of fun. And I kind of like accidentally like got good at doing vocals. So all the local guys around me kind of like were kind of like, yo, like you're like our guy, no like guitar, but I don't want to be like I don't really want to do vocals, but like they're just like, no, you gotta do vocals, like you're so good. I was like,
Right.
okay, fine.
So
So
how did it
I definitely mixed around
accidentally
with like
get it?
different
How did it accidentally get out that you were good at vocals? Like, was it like you did a cover of something and then people were like, "What the fuck? Tyler sounds like this." Um, Break that down.
I was just like messing around at practice, like
Oh,
you'd
okay.
hook up like your iPod to like the PA speakers and be like, oh, like scream along to this song, and I did it like enough times to where I kind of got like the hang of it.
I
So I
see.
was kind of like just doing it like offhandedly somewhere. It would just feel like, oh, dude, like you should do vocals instead.
No, that is interesting because
But
I think even in a live show setting, like there are so many bands who are like very pro like grab the mic and just do the part, and sometimes people are
mhm,
just so in the moment that they're not really like there are definitely people listening or watching this who have been like, yo man, can I, and I'm guilty of this myself, but it's like, yo man, can I jump on stage and do this part in this song or something? It's like, yeah, of course. But sometimes it's like I think I love Scott Vogel from Terror for this, is that, as soon as he sees one person is like knows a lyric, he'll just like, no, you do it. He'll just hand the part off. It's not like this
yeah,
very deliberate thing. But yeah, I've watched videos where, where like either Sonny from Hey 56 is filming or anyone else, where it's like, who is like this person in the green hoodie at 13 minutes and 20 seconds, they sound like a fucking maniac. But that is just a way that people can be like, yo, this person sounds sick. I know this dude, and I had no idea that they could do vocals. And then that band, becomes the next Knocked Loose or whatever it is. But
mhm,
yeah, it's funny that you were just shitting around at practice, being like what was
yeah.
one of the songs that your friends would be like, yo, like scream to this?
Oh, I don't even remember. I just remember like I just remember practicing enough to where people like my bandmates will like notice. But
Mhm.
going back to like doing like two different like vocals or like multiple like different vocals for each band,
Yeah.
it came with like practicing like a wide like variety of I guess it's
Yeah.
like genres of or like genres techniques of like doing like screaming.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've definitely heard it where there are some vocalists in certain bands that like they have the low and the high, and it's like they kind of cover as many bases in one project as they can. But I feel like hardcore like really encourages like, hey, like you can do the crazy like hardcore punk vocals, but then you can have your death metal side project and just sound like a caveman essentially. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's like if you have the caveman death metal vocals in the punk hardcore band, like sometimes that works really well, and sometimes it's like something is missing here. But yeah, it seems very apparent to me off of your stuff is like, okay, like this band I'm doing this style, and for this band I'm kind of doing, there's definitely crossover, but it's not like the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of answers some of my other questions of like, you know, um, so maybe you got like really invested on like the vocal side, but you, like you said, you started on guitar, and the first time that we crossed paths was when Risk came up for Wild Rose Hardcore Fest, and I think that was, and just correct me if I'm wrong, if that was one of the first times that you guys were playing live as a four piece, or was there a plethora of other times before that?
So that was because that was in the middle of the run that we were doing with Sea Space Cowboy,
Yes.
and that was the first that tour was the first time I was playing with WRISTMEETRAZOR.
Gotcha.
I actually, it wasn't like I joined and then I went on tour with them. It was more of like, it was actually uh the LDB pre-show 2019. Because I've known Jonah for a few years because Delaware's in between like Pennsylvania and Maryland.
Right.
So I can hit Philly and Baltimore. So I would go down to Baltimore for shows, and I would always see him around, and we like became friends just through that. And he was at the he was at the pre-show because he was doing like backup vocals and samples for Shame.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
we we like we were like, hey, what's up? You know, he was like, hey, can I like talk to you outside? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I was like, what's up? He's like, hey, you don't have to answer me like right now, but me and the guys would love you to have love you have would love to have you in WRISTMEETRAZOR. Just think about it and let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, they were like one of my favorite like current bands.
Mm-hmm.
I just they're awesome. Like I love the EPs that they put out. I love the full length that they put out. So I thought about it. I was like, sure, third band, why not?
Yeah. In Simulacra,
like just keep adding on.
Yeah, the Instagram bio just gets longer and longer. But I was gonna say, from in Simulacra, are you playing guitar in that band?
So I originally I was playing guitar in that band, but because I was out so much, they would always have to have like some more friends like Dylan on guitar. So I moved to bass so that it'd be easier to like teach someone like the bass parts for whenever like I was out.
I got you. Okay, so you got downgraded 2 strings.
I did get downgraded.
Nah, I'm
like,
kidding.
God damn it.
Honestly, like,
nah, it's fine.
I think people that play in multiple bands should have one of those bands at least to play bass, because I've played in, like right now I just really play in one band, but like back when I was doing like 2 or 3, it was always like I needed to have that one, like, I play bass in this band, because playing bass live is like, you don't have, like, there's not as much pressure unless you're like, you have these intricate bass parts. But if you're playing like heavy music, it's just like, I can just like smack this thing around and just jump around and be a goofball. So I feel like if you're playing in multiple bands, having that style or that level of responsibility or lack of responsibility is key for sure. So yeah.
I was gonna say, I originally for Vicious Embrace, I was actually like I joined as like the bass player.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, so it's kind of funny that you mentioned like, oh, people should have like, if you play multiple bands, you should have like that one band that you just kind of do like the offhand kind of like instrument.
Yeah.
But I got moved to I again with like the same like vocalist stuff. Like I got moved to vocals because our vocalist left like the day before a tour,
Oh,
and
jeez.
yeah, so that situation was so just a headache and a nightmare. But I moved to vocals because they were like, hey, you're like the only straight edge person that does vocals around here that we would want to do vocals for.
Right.
So I was like, okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, I've never been in that pickle where it's like I'm planned to go out to do something and then just like the day of. Like, I've heard it too many times where someone someone in some band quits the day of the tour, the day before the tour, 2 days before, and it leaves bands scrambling to like still make the tour or the shows happen. I think Prowl and Stepping Stone, who are both Canadian bands, were doing a tour together, and it was for Wild Rose 2018. Like, and Prowl's all the way in Montreal, so they were like making a heck of a jaunt to make it all the way out here to Calgary.
Shit.
And
Yeah.
their drummer quit like the day before the tour, and then it was like, all right, well, can Ross from Stepping Stone play drums for half the set, and then like Luke, who does vocals but also plays drums, play for half the set. So when they played Calgary, it was like, wait, like why are members of Stepping Stone filled? They're just like, yeah, our drummer just left. It's a long story. Um, for any of the podcast listeners out there, I am planning on having Mark from Prowl eventually come on the podcast, but that's a little tease in the middle of the episode. But yeah, it just never got where it's like, it's not like you guys decide on the Monday and then you're going out on the weekend. Like, there's multiple months of like locking in dates and like, okay, are we tight in practice? I I don't understand why some people are like, all right, it's the 11th hour and it's time to just let a bunch of my friends down.
Yeah. It's such a like if you're all right, if you're thinking about leaving a band, just don't be a coward and just quit and ghost everyone like the day before. It's not only do you put like your not only do you put like your reputation as a person like on a fucking like rope, you also put like your other friends like in a really weird situation that no one really wants to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like just
So I know it's like,
sorry, you go. I keep interrupting you.
oh no, it's fine. I was gonna say like I know it can be like really like intimidating and like scary to like kind of bring up the topic, but it's not worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in that. I've had to do that dance multiple times, and like even just like I've learned as someone, even just like just getting to the point versus trying to like try to cushion the blow. Like if it's like a concrete decision, like getting to it like immediately is I like whether you're delivering the news or receiving the news, it is a lot better versus like what the fuck are we talking about kind of thing. But the other thing too, if you're like not really vibing with it, like being like hopefully you can be vocal with like the people that you're gathering together with and playing music and writing music to be like, yo, like I'm really busy because I had a kid, or like my work is crazy, like, or just talking those things through versus just like kind of being weird for a few weeks and then like you said just like dip in and never talking to those people again. I won't name them obviously, but we had to kind of do something with doing a little bit of a lineup change with like Endgame, and it was like thought it was kind of fine, and then it was like I don't know if I'll ever see this dude at a hardcore show anyways, so maybe it was like you weren't even really in it for the right reasons or whatever. But yeah, it does become a little strange if people just aren't authentic and upfront about how they're feeling about things.
yeah, definitely not being like uh I don't know what I was gonna say.
No, it's all good. It's like it's one of those things where it's like we've said enough on like, it becomes a dangerous game of like, oh, I don't want to name so and so, and then like any of your homies were like, oh, that's you're talking about
Yeah,
that person.
yeah.
But
Yeah, not naming names, but anyone who knows, and yeah.
right. So transitioning back, playing. So Jonah asking you to play second guitar, or essentially just like giving you like the offer, which I think is really really cool. And I think that was kind of a needed thing for that band. I thought that I always think like three pieces are really really cool, but I just for like two guitars, I always think most bands sound really good with two. In a live setting, definitely.
Mhm.
So, yeah, like to see that for Wild Rose and just like, just the response for you guys was also really, really interesting as well. As far as the time of recording this, you guys put out like a new single like really recently that I have bumped on repeat a number of different times. Um, I'm
Thank
very,
you.
very excited for what's coming down the pipe. It was kind of funny because I remember having Isaac on the podcast and we talked about like, he's not like fronting the band now, but like having him as a feature was almost like this like little like tease as if he ever does that one day. And I was like, man, there is like too much power to be given in that regard. But yeah, just tell me about that song, the video, and what you guys have cooking right now, because I'm very intrigued.
Let's see. So uh we wrote the EP that we're going to release this year last March. I mean, we had like some pre-pros like backed up from like because me and Jonah both like recorded at like our home studios.
Right.
So we had like some like ideas like like in the archive. Um, and then we went to Louisville for a week to have Isaac help us produce the album because he didn't like really he didn't announce that he was going to be like producing or like wanted to like put his name out there like as a producer. He for the time he was like kind of like feeling it out,
Right.
you know. So we were the first ones to like go to him to like have him like produce the album. So we did pre-pros with him. Then we went to Bricktop in Chicago, who's done like Harm's Way, Jesus Peace. We recorded with Andy, awesome guy. Shout out to Andy. We'll be seeing him really soon. We recorded with him for like a week and then sent off to get mastered. And then we've been just like sitting around because the whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
Trying to like figure out like a good time to like release it, whether it be like sorry, it's like raining. Let me close the window real quick.
Oh, it's raining. I was like, oh, is there something going down the back alley?
Oh no.
Yeah, the
Sorry,
time
I did
difference.
not expect it to.
No, that's all good. You got to have the window open and get the cool breeze at times.
Yeah, I mean it was like super nice out, and this room definitely gets hot at times, but
Definitely.
sorry about that.
No, that's all good. It's a part of the show. Shit going wrong.
Wait, okay. So
You
what
guys
was I saying?
recorded. You've been waiting as far as the timing of releasing it, and now we're in beginning of 2021, and now it's like, hey, there's something on the horizon. And here's one song.
Yeah. We're doing it. We try to plan it like as like as smart as we could, in hopes of, you know, the return of like shows later down the road.
Yeah.
Hopefully this year. But I mean, if not, then it's nothing can be done about it really.
Yeah, I feel like most bands are, you know, I was kind of thinking about this as 2020 was wrapping up. There's like a plethora of bands that put something out either off of like they were already planning to do something in 2020 and then things just got delayed, and then, you know, maybe there was people into October, November, December who were just like fuck it, like let's put it out. But I honestly think that I know that there's going to be bands that are going to be very stubborn and like not post the album or the LP or the EP or whatever it is until it's like shows can
Mhm.
happen. But I think most current hardcore acts that are kind of active right now are like, well, I can't even say that because like God's Hate, like like that album came out of nowhere. Um, as far as something that was
Yeah.
them not releasing something for a long time, and then it's like, yeah, like I think it's time to do that. But I do think that a lot of bands are like it is going to be really interesting, like when shows and touring and people get busy and the music industry starts to pick up, of like, are people going to be listening more or less because, you know, the world is has changed in back into a normal setting, because right now it's like I find myself so on the hunt for new music, and I find like there's a lot of bands who are putting stuff out, but you know, depending on, it's like, oh, I want to listen to this new album, but I'm going to the show tonight, or like I'm traveling just for shits and gigs or whatever it is. But I hope that everyone at least puts something out, whether it's like, hey, here's a single or an entire LP. Um, to kind of make it fair for like,
Mhm.
you know, when shows do come back, where it's like, you know, every band will be playing songs that they put stuff out, like, and there's been a lull of that time in between.
Yeah. Definitely don't rush to put anything out, but also don't like wait too long to put anything
Right.
out, because that can definitely like damage a lot of aspects of some bands. Like it could like break bands up. It could just like have them kind of like fall off
Mm-hmm.
unofficially. Um, um, yeah, that yeah, don't wait too long to put anything out. Like if anyone's listening that's in a band is considering on releasing music, just release it how don't rush, but don't wait too long. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, there's a fine line there, and I think you get better at that the more music you do put out, and the more bands that you're a part of in the past.
Yeah.
So, you know, to really drive
Mhm.
home that point, you guys recorded that at the end of 2019. Is that what you said?
No, we recorded the full length
Or at least
in
wrote?
July of last year.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah, we wrote it in March of last year and then recorded in July of last year.
okay. And then it was just like goose egg, sit on it, kind of watch everything kind of go on. And
Hmm.
then when, like, for you guys, when was it like, okay, now we should start to do that? Like, you know, because I really want to give some value to people, like you said, who are in bands, who are, you know, trying to plan out releases, record some of those things. So like, was there a certain thing where you're like, okay, it has been this long, like since we've done it, and we should start to do that? Or was it like, oh, this is shifting in the world, so maybe we should start doing this now? Like, what was the like the light bulb that went off for you?
It was it was a mix between like, because the first LP, I mean, before I joined, the first LP released in 2018, I think. So Risk was already due for like another album. And I guess like, I mean, if COVID haven't didn't like wasn't like a thing, we definitely would have released the album like last year.
Sure.
But I mean, we were already like in the talks because we wrote a song in 2019, released it as a single.
Oh, Take Your Shot.
Like towards the end of 2019. Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird because that was like the first time I was writing with them. Try just to get like a feel for what like the next album could like sound like.
Sure.
And then I think we're just like going along like as we would have without if like again like if COVID wasn't like really a thing. Yeah, so we were still gonna like meet up to pre-pro with Isaac. We were still gonna record with Andy, and then release it that year. But since COVID was a thing, we just kind of like waited out a little bit, kind of like just trying to see what's going on. And then now it's like, okay, we had the proper time to like, you know, see how everyone's dealing with like this whole situation within the music industry.
Right.
So now is a good time to like put it out because we have a good idea on how to go about this.
Right. Yeah, because even just in hindsight, like I'm sure, like I don't know if you guys got like there could be just anything from like doing that music video in last summer, and it's like you guys aren't like supposed to be doing that, but now it's like one of those things where people like vaccines are rolling out and just like COVID numbers. I don't know if they're like that's not really important, but I think just the timing of some of those things and the creative, think like I think you hit the nail on the coffin as far as like be patient, but don't just like be like greedy and because ultimately because I know bands on the top of my head who are like who have albums and they're sitting in Dropbox right now. And it's like, I want to listen to this. And all of your friends have heard it because you've sent out links. And, I like your band isn't due for something. But again, it's like, it's not just dependent on me, but it's like, I do want to hear the new music.
Also, if anyone is like trying to like decide whether to release it now or like when shows come back, you're gonna have some really tough competition releasing it when shows come back because a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, like we have to release this when shows come back so we can play shows again. And then there's definitely like a good amount of bands who probably think that's a good idea, but all that's gonna get like convoluted and be just like a huge like mess.
Yeah, like that's honestly such a good point to like, obviously you can't hit up all your homies and be like, yo, like when are you releasing new music? Like if you have connections, like maybe that just comes up in inner circles, like, yeah, we're aiming for late August or whatever. But sometimes like
Sure.
you like shit happens and you put out your little debut demo and it's the same weekend that this big band is like, hey, here's our album. And it's all attention, right? I think about like when people were talking about their 2020 recaps, Drain's California Curse was like in so many, but literally the same day is when Rotting Out had their like kind of comeback album. And I almost didn't see that on anyone's list because a lot of people were just flooding to Drain versus Rotting Out, which, generally like they are in the same California bubble. But I would see that even with, a lot of different bands, any band that released a demo, an EP in the same 2-week period that Gulch did their latest record, like I feel for you because like a lot of the attention was only on that album.
Yeah, it can be tricky. Like some of it is just kind of like we literally had no idea this was coming out like the exact same day as we were gonna release something. But yes, sometimes it just be like that.
Yeah. I think all you can do is just try to have your pulse on things that are happening because most big releases will be like, here's the single, and then there's the announcement date of like when the whole thing comes out, and then so you can kind of plan for that a little bit better. But yeah, sometimes things just come at the same level, and I think yeah. So, but I do think that is a good point. Like for anyone's listening who's like, no, we're only gonna put it out when shows come back. There are a lot of bigger bands that I'm sure are thinking the exact same way. So it might almost be too much new music when it's like the debut of the first few tour announcements or festival lineups are announced. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Talking specifically about the latest single, I thought I had to like applaud you guys for like some of the stylistic direction, because I literally like closed my eyes the first time I was listening to it. I'm like, this is like there are some very serious like early As Lay Dying like style of riffs in some of those. And I also thought it was very cool that, a band like you guys in that kind of metalcore space wrote a killer ass song without having to add like the panic chord reet part. Like, I don't think that there's any of those in that entire song. So I have to clap for you guys on that point.
Thank you so much. Yeah. The As Like Dying's like probably like top 3 influences for like writing, well, for me personally, for like writing that single and the rest of the record. I think we're at the point, I think metalcore is at the point where it's like, doing like panic chords and whatnot. It's starting to like die out a little bit. It's definitely time to like bring like something new. Well, not necessarily new to the table, but like another like throwback like sound or aesthetic into the mix. And that's something I wanted to like try out to see if it's time for that or not.
Yeah, because I think like there are definitely bands who are maybe ahead of their time that put out something that maybe they don't blow up as much, but then like 5 years later, that is the thing that every hardcore band and their mother is doing. But I do think that at least for me, like there's a plenty of like great metalcore that dabbles in that style of riffage that I do like, but there are plenty of ones where it's like I like a couple songs, but I can't like it's kind of fatiguing to listen to that for 10 tracks. So to hear that, As Lay Dying is one of those bands that I grew up on. Like I think Through Struggle was one of the first songs that I was like, I need to learn how to play this on guitar.
Yes.
So yeah, there's like a plethora of as soon as I heard that and to hear that a lot of the other songs are gonna be based off of that is very exciting. And obviously like it's not like you can't throw like a reet or a panic chord or whatever into your music. It's just like and it's no different with like pick slides or like squeals. Like just be tasteful. Like
Yes.
as long as like if you're making a song as a recipe, that should just be sprinkled in versus like the whole like cup being poured in.
Absolutely. That's definitely something that like I try to be vocal about it, but I don't want to be like what's that word? What's that term? Like I forgot what the term is. Like I don't want to like
or
I can't think of the word. I'm so stupid.
No, you're fine.
It's oh, it's gonna take me forever to think about the word.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, it's something like doing, like panic chords, for example, like do it I like it when it's in moderation and it's done tastefully. It's in every single like little bit of the song. It's like it gets old pretty quickly.
Yeah. So a couple other points that I wanted to hit on. In your Instagram bio, as far as all the bands that you play in, I also saw that you are unofficially the Year of the Knife merch guy, which I thought was a pretty funny thing as well. Um, was that just kind of like a funny little joke, or are you like officially like it's on my resume if I'm applying for a job?
No, no, it's not like it's not an official thing, but it's like uh it's just like a funny little joke.
Hmm.
Because I've done a few tours with them, or even just doing like one-offs around the area. Um, yeah, it's a little joke.
Yeah. You know, and I think like Year of the Knife was one of those bands that really like opened the world as far as like, Delaware um heavy music, so to speak. What are your favorite and least favorite parts about Delaware?
Um, my favorite. Oh, actually, one of my favorite parts about Delaware, and I'm gonna do a little shout out if you don't mind.
Oh, shout it
Um,
out.
is home to my favorite coffee spot. Yeah, my favorite coffee spot in the whole country called Little Goat Coffee.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, that's where Tyler
They're
does some of
yeah,
the labeling for them, if I'm remembering correctly.
yeah, yeah. He does like all like the like the labeling for like the different like beans and teas that they have. They're a standalone company. They're awesome people, super supportive, and because before I started doing art full time, I would like deliver. My old job was like doing deliveries, and I would like stop in like every other day, just like grab like large cold brew with vanilla and oat milk, and sometimes they give me like a homie discount, or sometimes they give it to me for free,
Right.
and they've definitely like been a huge they've definitely like been there for me for like when I was like feeling like a little low at times. So shout out to Little Goat.
Yeah, no, I feel like, you supporting the Bev sponsors of this show, I should return the favor and support the Bev things in your circle as well. No, I'm a big coffee guy, if that wasn't already obvious, so I appreciate the plug. I oh yeah, I was like, how do we? Sometimes it's like going backwards. Like, how do we get to this topic? But we were talking about Delaware, so that is one of your favorites. What is one of your least favorite parts of that? Because I always like learning about the area that these bands and these people in these bands are coming from. But everyone will always, wherever they are in the world, will have a qualm with wherever they live. So what's that for you?
um I'm trying to think, like, I guess. Hmm,
And it doesn't need to
I really have to
necessarily
think
be
about
like,
this.
yeah, like, well, if you ride for
um
Delaware so hard, like that's cool as well. It doesn't even
yeah,
necessarily need to be like, I don't like this aspect of the city or whatever, or the state or whatever it is. It could just be like, I don't like how, like, a stereotype that people who think when they think about Delaware, they think this, and they're not from here, and that's not true. Like, it could be something like that too.
right. um I would say like, so Delaware has like three counties. It's like Newcastle, uh oh, I don't even know the rest of the two. um it's literally because no, it's literally because like because I grew up in like the northern like county of Delaware. So that's like all I like really know.
Sure.
But the rest of the two literally has like nothing besides like farmland and like beaches.
Oh,
So I
okay.
guess like the one thing that I don't like is like there could be so much more like cool stuff like spread out through Delaware, but it's only in like one specific part.
I see. Yeah, no, I think that is kind of one of those things where a lot of people will be like, I'm from this city, but like the majority of the state or the province or wherever you are is like, especially where I'm from, is like a lot of it is like farmland and just like fields and whatever.
Mhm.
But there is just the hubs of like the downtown or whatever it is. Um, what are your thoughts on Aubrey Plaza? Because she is like one of the biggest celebrities that comes from
Oh,
Delaware.
I didn't know she was from Delaware until like a few years ago. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I hope I can run into her one day. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. No, I only asked because I remember when River and John of Ballista came on the podcast, they were talking about how they ran into Owen Wilson at one of their shows their old band was playing because of he's from Dallas. And he's
Mhm.
like, I'm just trying to hang out, like
Yeah,
your band was sick. So I'm like, who knows if Aubrey is like at one of like a foreign hand show and just like, yeah, that Year of the Knife band was kind of cool or whatever it is.
yeah, that would be something else if she actually said that.
Yeah. If there was a celebrity that you would want to like just be in the background to see one of your bands play live, like who comes to mind?
Ooh, uh,
And it could be for whatever reason. It could just be for
hmm,
like I just want to like shock Lindsay Lohan or like one of the Kardashians, or it could be like this actual person that understands what heavy music is.
right. Ooh, I don't know. I don't even know because like I don't really watch movies. Like the only movie like I ever really watch is Hot Rod because that's like my favorite film of all time. I think it's like perfect. So I guess like Andy Samberg,
Yeah.
that would be pretty cool if he was like behind stage, kind of being like making like that what the fuck face.
Yeah, he just pulls out the hot rod like motorcycle and just rips in the pit for a little bit.
Yeah.
No, that's too funny. Um, yeah, no, I think I don't know. I mentioned it on the Ballista podcast, but like, if I ever was able to trick any celebrity to like showing them hardcore bands and getting their reaction, would just be like one of the most insane pieces of content that I could ever make. Like, if I was able to be like, hey, Danny DeVito, here's like Incendiary and like Cannibal Corpse. He'd be like, what the fuck is this? But I think that would just be amazing. Um, to quickly transition back to the Year in the Knife merch guy, thing. I wanted to ask, out of your efforts, and this could apply to really anything, but has there ever been a super weird merch experience as far as like you selling a shirt to someone that still perplexes you to this day? Like they were just really weird, or they asked a really weird question that you're like, what? Or they like came back and was like like trying to get a refund, or anything that's like still puzzles you.
Um, Nothing in particular comes to mind. It's more of like I'll have people just like, you know, the classic just like pick up the shirt, turn it around, just like throw it back on the table, just like completely ruining the setup. I'm just like, cool, thanks.
Yeah, I've never heard of just
um,
like just dropping it and just like, motherfucker, I folded this for like 10 minutes before you got here.
yeah. I like really I try to take my time to like make everything like as good as possible, like as like aesthetically pleasing as possible. Like
Sure.
this shirt's supposed to be here because it coincides with like how the CDs are like laid out and
Hmm.
whatnot. Um, I think another one is trying to escape merch cuts at the end of the night, or just like avoiding like the merch cut person
Oh, like the
because
venue.
like some yeah like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like the venue, like some venues are kind of like stingy, like depending on like whatever like contracts they signed, they're like
Sure.
stingy on like how much they take from like bands, and like especially uh like if Year of the Knife like is opening up like a tour, like some venues will like be like, hey, like where's like the merch cut, or like where's our like our percentage. I'll be like, we literally opened the tour and we made like however much,
Right.
definitely not as much as like the headliner,
Sure.
but
Definitely.
like leave us alone.
So have you been in those situations where you're
But
like
yeah,
packing up your stuff and just like kind of going around the venue to kind of avoid that person?
yeah, definitely that. Definitely like I'll have like I'll be like out of 3 interactions with like the person, be like, oh, don't, I got you. Just like give me some time to like pack up the things. Eventually, just like dipping off and not seeing them ever again without giving them money.
Yeah. You're like, yeah. Just give me a second. And then you're like, deuces, I'm out of here. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
literally
like,
just phase out, just like peace.
yeah, just like, I just think the idea of like a band paying a venue to like book the show, but then also paying that they made money is like, it's still so whack to me. And I hope that that isn't something going forward when shows do come back. But that could be wishful thinking. One of the last things I wanted to ask you about, Tyler, is like I saw that super recently that you announced that you have kind of are starting to do some more art and putting that online and things like that. You might need to help me with the title of that because I was like trying to say it out loud and I think I just was just really struggling. So it's called Ugh. I couldn't even get through the first couple of letters.
Unfurled.
Unfurled craft. Is that? Got you.
Unfurled
Okay.
craft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, have you always been drawing and like, kind of like doing stuff like that? Because I think the artistic direction is something that I haven't seen from a lot of people in hardcore. So I think that's really good to have like options versus like everyone goes like there's 5 key players that do kind of the same thing versus like having people that specialize in different things. But yeah, tell me about like, have you always been drawing and what kind of made you want to try and do that a little bit more than you were before?
Yeah. I've always, I guess, I've like the longest time I've always been like drawing something, coloring something. Um, I would just like, especially like in school, I have ADD amongst like a learning disability, so I would not like really pay attention in class. I would just like always draw.
Hmm.
So um, I I don't know, I didn't take drawing seriously until like maybe a little after high school, I
Okay.
want to say, because by then I was like, oh, like I can do like stuff for bands,
Mm-hmm.
or like do like designs for bands and get like money for it. I was like, oh, cool, I'll do it.
Right.
But as many people probably know, that market's like really tough to compete in, because there's always be someone better than you, and then there's always someone better than them, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was when was it? It was during my time like as like doing delivery as like my full-time job. I was like, this is like wearing my, you know, this is draining me mentally and like emotionally, just having to like deal with like strangers, just like doing like one-off like conversations. And I was like, maybe I should do something with art, because I've always loved drawing, and if I could like, you know, either do stuff for bands or do make art for myself and then just like able to like share with everyone else, why not?
Right.
And I started doing that officially this year. I haven't worked a day at my other place since then. Yeah, I do. I like illustrations like that where it's not completely like um what's the word? It's not completely like touched up, or it's like very rough looking.
Sure.
A
Yeah.
huge inspiration of mine is Derek Hess, who used to do like all like the older like metalcore like t-shirt designs and like old like flyers and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I was like, hey, no one else is doing this. Like I should probably, it'd be cool to do something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're doing that now.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. I'm gonna let my dog out because he's just, I don't know if you can hear him. He's just like meow meow meow. Give me 2 seconds. No, I think it is really cool. Like kind of like you said, like there are so many creatives in our space, which I think is really really cool because it's not like oh, I need to go to the like we signed to this record label, so it like I think for me, like I grew up on a lot of like face down records kind of bands, and it was like David Quiggle was like designing every album art, and it was cool to see that he was doing like different variations, but like over time it became like a little tiring of like seeing kind of the same thing time and time again. Like I really love his art style and artwork, but you know, to sign to a label and kind of be stuck in that realm is like I've never gotten the chance to ask any of those bands on that label. It was like, did you want to go with David or did you want to go a different direction? Um, but even just like in our space and hardcore, like you know, there are so many great artists right now, but I think a lot of people might only be going to them not like to appreciate their artwork, but also off like, oh well, if he shares it, then we'll get a little bit of a boost as well. Like there are so many untapped and lesser known like A bands, but also designers in our world. So I do think that it is really cool to see you you know taking the leap and doing that full time. It sounds like, which is really cool. Like as a reference point, you know, I was looking at some of the pieces today, and did you do the I guess the latest Foreign Hands album art off of that kind of style, same kind of
Yep.
vibe? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah, was that like a little bit of a like? Is there certain things where you're drawing just for yourself, and like, what's your thought process off of like just drawing as much as you can to like build up like more pieces for people to see, and then maybe that inspires the next commission that comes in or whatever. Like what's your day to day on like on just keeping that going?
Um, I guess it just depends on like the mood that I'm in.
Sure.
Uh, I don't know. I just like, I don't know, something about like drawing like I guess like figures, or just like figure drawing in general. It's just very like um I don't know, just something about it just kind of like there's something cool about like having like a body with like not really like a face, or like a distinguishable like face.
Mm-hmm.
Or just having them just do like a really weird like pose. uh I just I think it just looks cool.
Yeah. I, and what are you know there? I think that there are certain things that you know I can form in my mind, like oh, like Tyler is drawing from these kind of things. Like, yeah, I think when you were drawing some of the Coraline stuff, I was like, oh man, this is like so spot on some of those things. But like, what are the things that are influencing you, or even other artists that are influencing you as you're kind of growing this right now?
Mhm. um I mean, Derek Hess for sure. He's like, it's very apparent that I try not to bite off him, but I admire his art so much.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, I can't remember the artist's name, but I definitely like. Do you remember the scary stories to tell in the dark? Like the art for it.
Is that an album?
It's like No, it's like a older like book, like not
Oh,
children's book, but like it was definitely targeted to like middle school, high school
oh,
kids.
okay. Sorry, I'm just doing a little bit of a. Oh, apparently there's a movie about it that came out 2 years ago.
Yeah, there was a movie that released.
Did you watch that?
Yeah, but like the art for like the original books. No, I didn't. I think I don't trust. I don't really trust movie adaptations like that.
Yes. Yeah.
But the artist for yeah, the art
Oh, I
for
see the
those
book
books
here.
are like I
Okay.
always love. Yeah, I definitely. I guess that kind of like started that kind of like rabbit hole, just like for more like rougher, darker art.
Hmm.
I really like the art. I forget the artist's name, and I feel really stupid for not remembering it. But I definitely that was definitely like inspiration that I draw from. Uh, what else? Mm, and I guess like I mean at the time, Alex Pardee, who did like
Yes.
the used album art,
Hmm.
uh, like I always liked his art growing up. Um, but that's basically it for like artists that like the first artists that like come to mind. That's like what I can think of.
Yeah, no, it's really funny that you brought up Alex because, and this goes all the way back to our conversation at the beginning about like you not maybe being a big YouTube like kid or a YouTube guy. But when I was growing up, I
Mm,
would watch this one YouTuber. His name was Mitchell Davis, and he was like just kind of like this very kooky kind of character. But he got I don't know if he commissioned work from Alex Pardee or like just like shouted him out a bunch, but like that's how I got put onto him. And I think I still follow him on Instagram to this day. Like
mm.
always check in once in a while, and like his stuff was always like it's some of those things where it's like if my parents would see this like in my little Christian bubble, like maybe they would have something to say. It's like, how do you have this like little cute thing and then it's just like demonic or just like melting or whatever it is. But yeah, I think you saying that now like makes me like think about some of the other things. I'm like, oh, okay, so yeah, there's like elements of that in there. But yeah, Alex Pardee is like insanely talented.
Mm.
Um, I almost,
Yeah.
like I don't know if this will be a dated thing as far as like when this podcast comes out. It's not really super apparent right now, but I kind of think, and maybe he did do it. Like I'm not sure. Like I feel like that was one of those artists that was just putting out so much stuff that with all the conversations around NFTs and like people buying one of ones or tokens for artists. I feel like if he hasn't already, he would probably make a killing doing that.
Yeah. I can definitely see it. Like he was he like I guess like early like late 2000s, early 10s was when he was like at his peak. I don't really like see a lot of his content floating around from like other people.
Hmm.
But he was definitely like one of the bigger artists that time that was definitely making a killing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Um, what's your, like not your like 5-year plan, but like where would you like to see, that portion of your, I guess, art world or creative side? If we were, fast forwarding a year from now, like what's your ambition and aspiration for that?
Um, where I see myself 5 years.
Not
Um,
five. Like, let's do one because I feel like one is a little bit more like I can actually
all right.
envision that. Because sometimes when it's like, "What's your 5-year plan?" I'm like, if you would have asked me that 5 years ago, that I would have like a kind of cool podcast and Bev sponsors, like I'd be like, no, like, there's no way that would happen. But here we are.
Right. A year from now. I don't know. I'm like feeling it out right now. I definitely want to do like I would love to do like band collaborations.
Hmm.
Not so much much like waiting for, someone to hit me up or whatever. Eventually I want to like hit bands up and be like, hey, we can like, let's do a design. We'll make like prints of it. You can make like a shirt out of it. Cause like there's not a whole lot we can do right now. So I feel like doing like prints or like making like a t-shirt or whatever. I think that would be kind of cool. And I could definitely see that being a thing, like doing like band collaborations like within like the next year.
Yeah. Is there like a major hit list band that you're like, when I get to that point, I eventually want to ask this individual, not even a band, but like this artist even?
Not really, no. Just I'll literally do it for whoever and whenever.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry to all the audio listeners who are hearing my dog just go bad. I think my wife is home from work, so we can probably start to wrap up the show. I'm just listening. Yeah, they are here. But yeah, Tyler, this has been a really, really great chat. Like I said, like I'm a big fan of all the bands that you're involved in right now, and to see someone working super hard and doing different things and being intentional about making all those things different is very sick. The last portion of the podcast is telling a favorite mosh story that you would like to send the listeners off with. So, whether that's Foreign Hands, Wrist Meets Razor, or whatever kind of comes to mind off the top of your head is kind of how we end the show.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I really like appreciate like the support that you give like throughout my creative outlets. It really means a lot.
I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. So all right. I'm gonna do 3, but they were like super short.
Oh, okay.
So the first one,
rapid fire.
I'm gonna go in like chronological. So like it's like one of the first, kind of the middle, and kind of more of like recent.
Okay.
So one of my first favorite mosh stories is so at that Prada show that I was talking about, we were, so the lineup was Prada, Whitechapel, Gwen Stacy, and Maylene and the Sons of Disaster.
Okay.
So
shout out to Maylene.
So I mean the show, yeah, the show was sold out, but so there's like, all these people trying to cram into like this 400 cap room. As I'm like walking inside, I forgot who was playing, but there was already like a mosh pit happening outside of the venue. And having that being like my second show ever and seeing that, I was like, do people do that? Like, is this allowed?
Right. You're like, wait, like what triggers the pre-mosh before the actual mosh at the show? Like,
right. So I was really confused. I was like, what is happening right now? So that was like that's always in my mind. That's always replaying my mind. Sure. The second one is like the Six Flags like amusement parks.
Yep.
They did a like a metalcore like festival in New Jersey at one of their parks.
Okay.
It was, do you remember the incident where Escape the Fate, like I guess like Ronnie, not Escape the Fate, falling reverse through like a mic stand into the crowd and hit like some girl in the head?
I've seen that video.
I was at that. Yeah,
oh, okay.
I was at that, but I didn't see that happening. I actually, before the nightfall, I broke my nose in a mosh pit during one of the opening bands.
Okay.
And I was like super bummed out about it, but for some reason that didn't stop me from riding like roller coasters throughout the entire day.
You're just doing the loop-de-loop and the blood is going out your nose and back into your mouth. That's how COVID starts.
Well, yeah. They like kind of said it, but not really. So I just had like my nose like plugged up with like tissues, just riding like roller coasters all day, from breaking my nose at a mosh pit at Six Flags.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't know
and the
that whole
most recent
incident
one
happened at Six
that,
Flags of all places. That's so crazy. Because that video and the whole
yeah,
thing is already
it
crazy, but to add the layer that happened at Six Flags just makes it totally crazier.
yeah, safe to say their Six Flags is never doing a metal show ever after that.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, so man, that's a great story. So I'm kind of curious at what you end on for your third.
So, all right. This is kind of fucked up, and I hope this person's okay. I'm surprised Jake didn't say this from Judiciary when he had him on.
Okay.
So during Knock Loose's like Blue Weekend for their record release,
Mm-hmm.
during Judiciary set, some kid was like running across the stage to like stage dive, but Jake's microphone cord got accidentally got caught around the kid's like neck,
Oh no.
but Jake didn't realize what was happening. So Jake kind of like tugged the microphone cord,
Oh my gosh.
and then the kid just goes.
And did he just
I
like
just
land on his back, or he was just like
I don't.
he was trying to go forward and then he got like ring back like a
Yeah, he was
dog on a
like trying to
leash?
go for. Yeah, just like he was trying to go forward, and just Jake just like naturally just went like that and just like yoinked him back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But
very important to say obviously that wasn't I can already tell I wasn't at that, but obviously that wasn't intentional. Like that's very multiple things are happening at a show. You feel a tug on your mic cable and you're not really looking at what's happening. You're trying to just like get it free of whatever it is. But unfortunately, it's around.
yeah,
I don't. How did that even get tangled up? That's crazy.
I've I have no idea, but there's like a select few people who saw like that, and we just like whenever we talk about it, we just I feel so bad. I hope that kid's okay.
Yeah.
But that's like my most recent like favorite like mosh story that I can think of.
Yeah. I'll have to follow up with Jake about if he, he wants to add anything to that story. But no, that is too funny. I've seen it before where I thought you were gonna say he like pulled it back and the kid like tripped on the cord, but like that's even better for the story.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said before, Tyler, this has been really fun. Mad appreciate you supporting our Bev sponsors and getting us to have a conversation and have a great conversation for this podcast. All your bands and your links for your art and your personal will all be in the show notes in the description of the video. But if you want to shout out anyone, plug anything, send the people off with whatever, the floor is yours for whatever you got.
There's a lot of people and a lot of like a lot of yeah, just like a lot of people I want to shout out, but obviously that would take like another like podcast episode.
Right.
So to like get it done with. But I do want to say that like coming from someone who didn't really have like a community or like have like a good set of friends to like kind of like rely on growing up until I got into like the music scene. I definitely want to like share like my appreciation for like pretty much like anyone who's like talking or giving me the time to like exchange words with. So shout out to everyone that I've like met through the music scene.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like shouting out everyone covers all the bases versus like shout out this person, shout out this, and then you forget your one homie or whatever. So, yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like like I think about it all the time about how crazy hardcore is and how the the community aspect of just being able to connect people off of just the smallest things, and people can fully be open and for the most part for sure, but like the fact that
Mm-hmm.
I've watched a number of your bands, and then all it took was you getting a Bev and us to be like, yo, like we got a Bev check this together. And now it feels like I got another great friend in the hardcore scene, which I think is, something that I will never take for granted. So that's always very, very sick.
Yeah, it's definitely been a wild journey. Just especially like right now. I mean, we're in like untreated waters right now. The best we can do is just band together and hold up.
Yep, and yeah, I'm super super excited for that. Super excited for As the Lay Dying esque Wrist Meets Razor when that comes down the pipe. Obviously excited for any new music that you're a part of. So again, thanks for coming on the podcast, Tyler, and I hope that you're drinking more Say When when that carton runs out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a blast.
Of course.